I remember that day clearly, as if it were painted in my memory with bright, unforgettable colors. The sky was a perfect shade of blue without a single cloud, and the sun shone brightly, warming the early spring air. But despite the beautiful weather outside, inside me was a storm of emotions. My heart was beating so fast that I could feel it in my throat. My hands were sweaty and shaking slightly, and my mouth felt as dry as a desert. I stood at the edge of what felt like a huge cliff in my life, though to others it might have seemed like just a small, ordinary step. For as long as I could remember, I had always been the kind of person who liked routines and predictability. Every morning, I woke up at exactly 6:30 a.m. I ate the same breakfast, a bowl of cereal with milk and a banana. I took the same path to school, walking past the old oak tree, the blue house with white shutters, and the small bakery that filled the street with the smell of fresh bread. At school, I sat at the same desk, talked to the same 3 friends during lunch break, and ate the same sandwich my mother prepared for me each day. I never raised my hand in class unless I was completely sure of the answer. I never joined any after-school activities that weren't required. I liked things to be the same every day. It made me feel safe and in control. Change was something I tried to avoid at all costs. When things changed, I felt lost and worried, like a boat without an anchor in a stormy sea. But that particular Tuesday in April was different. My English teacher, Mrs. Wilson, a kind woman with silver-streaked hair and glasses that always slid down her nose, had given our class an unusual assignment the day before. She called it the Comfort Zone Challenge. Each student had to do something they had never done before, something that scared them a little, and then write about the experience. Growth happens outside our comfort zones, Mrs. Wilson had explained, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. Sometimes we need a little push to discover new parts of ourselves. At first, I didn't want to do it. I even thought about pretending to be sick on the day the assignment was due. New things scared me. I imagined all the things that could go wrong. I thought about doing something easy, like trying a new food or taking a different route to school. But deep inside, I knew these weren't real challenges for me. They wouldn't count as truly stepping out of my comfort zone. Mrs. Wilson would know I hadn't really tried, and more importantly, I would know. For 2 days, I thought about what I could do. I made a list of things that scared me: speaking in front of large groups, trying out for sports teams, eating at a restaurant alone, talking to people I didn't know well. The list was long, and looking at it made my anxiety worse. But one item on the list kept drawing my attention: joining the school's music club. I had always loved music. At home, I listened to songs for hours, singing along quietly when I was sure no one could hear me. Music made me feel understood and less alone. When I was sad, music comforted me. When I was happy, music helped me celebrate. But I was too shy to sing in front of others. The thought of people looking at me while I sang made my hands shake and my voice disappear. What if they laughed at me? What if I hit a wrong note? What if my voice cracked in the middle of a song? The questions and fears multiplied in my mind like rabbits. After much internal debate and several sleepless nights, I finally decided that the music club would be my challenge. It scared me enough to count as a real step outside my comfort zone, but it also attracted me enough that I might actually go through with it. For 3 days after making this decision, I walked past the music room after school. I could hear the beautiful sounds of singing and instruments playing. The melodies floated out into the hallway, inviting and intimidating at the same time. Each day, I stopped and listened, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes longer, but couldn't find the courage to go inside. I would stand there, my hand halfway raised to knock on the door, then lower it and walk away, disappointed in myself but also relieved. On the 4th day, which happened to be the last day before the assignment was due, I finally told myself, today is the day. If not today, then when? I repeated this phrase like a mantra as I walked to the music room after the final bell rang. My legs felt heavy, as if I were walking through deep water. My heart raced so fast I thought it might burst from my chest. When I finally walked into the music room, the scene that greeted me was both exactly what I had expected and completely different. The room was larger than I had imagined, with posters of famous musicians on the walls and several keyboards along one side. In the center, chairs were arranged in a semicircle. I saw many students I didn't know, about 15 in total. Some were from my grade, but others were older. They were laughing and talking, their voices creating a cheerful chaos. Some were playing guitars, others were gathered around a piano, and a few were looking at sheets of music, their heads nodding to a rhythm I couldn't hear. I felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong there. Everyone seemed to know each other so well. They all seemed so confident and talented. I wanted to turn around and leave, to run back to the safety of my familiar routine. My feet actually started to move backward toward the door. But then I took a deep breath, remembered Mrs. Wilson's words about growth, and forced myself to step forward. My legs felt heavy, like they were made of stone, and each step required enormous effort. "Hello," I said in a voice so small that I wasn't sure anyone had heard me. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Hello. Can I join you?" For a moment, the room grew quieter, and I felt everyone's eyes on me. My face grew hot, and I stared at the floor, counting the black and white tiles to distract myself from the embarrassment. But then, a girl with a bright smile and colorful butterfly hair clips waved at me from her seat near the piano. "Of course you can join us," she said, her voice warm and welcoming. "We always need more voices. Do you like to sing?" I nodded, still feeling nervous. My voice seemed to be hiding somewhere deep inside me, unwilling to come out. "Great," she said, standing up and walking over to me. "I'm Sarah. We're practicing for the spring concert that's happening next month. Here's the song we're learning now." She handed me a sheet of paper with lyrics and musical notes that looked like a secret code to me. "I'm Lynn," I managed to say, taking the paper with a slightly trembling hand. "I've never done this before." "That's okay," Sarah reassured me. "Everyone starts somewhere. Come sit by me, and just follow along as best you can." She led me to an empty chair next to hers, and I sat down, still feeling like I might run away at any moment. The music teacher, Mr. Roberts, a tall man with a friendly face and a booming laugh, noticed me and came over. "Welcome to music club," he said. "Don't worry about getting everything perfect today. Just enjoy the music and do your best." For the next hour, we practiced songs together. At first, my voice was so quiet that no one could hear me. I was just moving my lips, pretending to sing while barely making a sound. But slowly, as I observed that no one was laughing at me or judging me, I began to sing a little louder. Sarah sometimes smiled encouragingly at me, and once she whispered, "That's it. I can hear you now, and you sound good." Mr. Roberts was kind and patient. He didn't force me to sing alone but encouraged everyone to support each other. "Remember, we're a team," he said. "Each voice adds something special to our sound." By the middle of the practice, I was singing along with the group on a song I already knew. It was still quiet, but it was real singing, not just mouthing the words. By the end of the club meeting, I was singing even more confidently with everyone else. My voice blended with the others, creating a beautiful sound that filled the room. It wasn't perfect. I missed some notes and sometimes came in a beat too late, but it felt good. I had done something that scared me, and I had survived. Not only survived but actually enjoyed it. Walking home that day, I felt different. The familiar streets seemed new somehow, as if I were seeing them with fresh eyes. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk, and I noticed details I had never paid attention to before: the pattern of cracks in the concrete, the varied shades of green in the trees, the different sounds of birds calling to each other. I felt like I had discovered a new part of myself. I felt proud and light, as if a heavy weight I had been carrying for years had been lifted from my shoulders. The world looked brighter somehow, and possibilities I had never considered before seemed to open up before me. I had stepped out of my comfort zone and found something wonderful on the other side. That night, I sat at my desk and wrote about my experience for Mrs. Wilson's assignment. The words flowed easily from my pen, and I realized I had so much to say. I wrote about the fear I felt, the physical symptoms of my anxiety, the courage it took to walk into that room, and the joy I discovered when I finally let my voice be heard. I described Sarah's kindness and Mr. Roberts' encouragement. I explained how singing with others made me feel connected in a way I hadn't experienced before. My essay ended up being 5 pages long, the most I had ever written for a school assignment. The next week, without any assignment requiring me to do so, I returned to the music club. Sarah saved a seat for me, waving excitedly when I walked in. "You came back," she exclaimed. "I was hoping you would." I felt welcome and, surprisingly, a little excited. Week after week, I continued to go back. My voice grew stronger, and my confidence grew with it. I learned to read music, at least the basics. I made friends with other club members, not just Sarah, but also Miguel, who played the guitar, and Jasmine, who had the most beautiful solo voice I had ever heard. I was still shy in many ways, but something had changed inside me. I had found a place where I could be more than the quiet, routine-loving person I had always been. 2 months later, the spring concert arrived. Standing backstage with the music club, dressed in our matching blue shirts, I felt that same fear return. The auditorium was full of parents, teachers, and other students. My parents were out there, curious to see this new side of me they hadn't known existed. I peeked through the curtains and immediately regretted it. There were so many people. My hand started to shake again, and I felt like I might be sick. Sarah noticed and squeezed my hand. "Just look at Mr. Roberts and the other club members," she advised. "Pretend we're just practicing in the music room." As we walked onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded me, which was actually a relief because I couldn't see the audience clearly. We took our positions, and Mr. Roberts raised his hands to conduct us. As we began to sing, I found my voice among the others. It wasn't the loudest or the most beautiful, but it was mine, and it was part of something bigger and more beautiful than I could have created alone. In the audience, once my eyes adjusted to the lights, I could see my parents. My mother was smiling so widely it looked like her face might split in two. My father, usually so serious, was recording the performance on his phone, a proud expression on his face. Mrs. Wilson was there too, sitting a few rows back, nodding encouragingly when she caught my eye. After the concert, my parents hugged me tightly. "We had no idea you could sing like that," my mother said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You were wonderful." "I'm not really that good," I admitted. "But I'm getting better." "It's not about being the best," my father said, surprising me with his insight. "It's about doing something that brings you joy." Since that first day in the music club, I have tried other new things. I joined a different study group, where I had to work with students I didn't know well. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, despite being nervous around unfamiliar animals. I even raised my hand in class to answer questions I wasn't 100% sure about. Each new challenge is still scary, but I know now that I can handle the fear. It doesn't control me anymore, I control how I respond to it. The following year, when a new student stood hesitantly at the door of the music room, I was the one who walked over and welcomed her in. "Don't worry," I told her, seeing the same fear in her eyes that I had felt. "Everyone starts somewhere." Looking back, I realized that stepping out of my comfort zone wasn't just about joining the music club. It wasn't even about discovering that I enjoyed singing. It was about discovering that I am stronger than I thought. It was about learning that growth happens when we face our fears, not when we hide from them. It was about finding new parts of myself that had been there all along, waiting to be discovered. My life is different now. I still have routines, but they're choices, not shields I hide behind. I still feel afraid sometimes when facing new situations, but I've learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. Now, when I feel afraid of something new, I remind myself of that day. I remember how I felt before I walked into the music room and how I felt after. I remember the physical sensations of fear, the racing heart, the dry mouth, the shaky hands, and I recognize them as signs that I'm about to grow, not warnings to retreat. I remember that sometimes, the things that scare us the most are the things that help us grow the most. Mrs. Wilson's assignment ended long ago, but its impact continues. She was right when she said growth happens outside our comfort zones. I've learned that life's most meaningful experiences often wait for us just beyond the boundaries of what feels safe and familiar. Stepping out of your comfort zone is scary, but sometimes, the best things in life are waiting for you on the other side of fear. New friends, new skills, new confidence, and new understanding of yourself, all these treasures are found not in the safe and familiar, but in the new and challenging. Each time we face our fears, we expand our comfort zone a little more, making room for new experiences and opportunities. I still have my comfort zone, and sometimes I still like to stay in it. There's nothing wrong with enjoying familiar routines and activities. But now I know that the edge of that zone is not a dangerous cliff, it's a doorway to new possibilities. And I'm no longer afraid to step through it. As Mrs. Wilson wrote on my essay when she returned it, the greatest discovery is not in finding new lands, but in seeing with new eyes. That day, when I stepped out of my comfort zone, I began to see myself and the world around me with new eyes. And for that, I will always be grateful.